Hello everyone, and welcome to this talk on user interface factors of mobile UX, a study with an incident reporting application. I would like to start by giving you a bit of context for the work, and some of you may be familiar with Fix My Street. It is an application, incident reporting application that was launched back to 2017 in the UK, and it is helpful to report on things like potholes, graffiti back to the local authorities so that they can take action. So the idea has gained much success, and it has been applied to other countries. For example, it led to the Fixa Mingata in Sweden or the Zurich Vinoy in Zurich. And this is not the only type of incident reporting application out there. You have this Lichtstörung from the company called Stromnetz Berlin, which helps report about damaged street lights, and you have UB Loop in France that is also useful for similar purposes. So incident reporting applications are increasingly valuable, and they do present some opportunity for user experience research. Now the question why you would want to study user UX in this context has three possible answers. First of all, a positive user experience is crucial to repeated contributions by citizens. If citizens want to report something and the process is cumbersome and unpleasant, it's very unlikely that they participate for a long time. Secondly, it is an idea from or a gap in the literature. There is still lack of empirically derived guidelines on how to design interactive maps, and incident reporting application do use interactive maps as one of the components to achieve their goal. And at last, this is more of a long-term goal. Understanding basic factors of mobile user experience is crucial for computational UI design. There are two papers that I want to mention as related work on this slide. The first one is a paper published last year by Hobinski and colleagues. And what they were trying to learn about is to see the preferences of users when it comes to button placement, the location of button on mobile map applications. They investigated many different buttons, the ones to change layers, the one for geolocation, to measure distance, to search, and many more. What you can see here on this picture is the result when it comes to geolocation, and you could see that actually positioning of this button matters. The majority of the user preferred this corner, and some some other position didn't even get ratings from users. So positioning matter on mobile device. Um, and navigation strategy matters also. Here on the right hand side, you have a study by Harms and al. And they study different navigation strategy on long forms, and you had scrolling here. Then you had the use of tabs to navigate, and you have the use of menu here, and then you have the use of collapsible fields. And what I reported was that scrolling performed worse than all other three when it comes to the usability. They didn't find any detrimental impact or any difference between the four conditions when it comes to task completion times. So in the current work, we are interested in these two questions. First of all, finding out whether there is or not an influence of different form designs on user experience and usability. We want to compare scroll versus tap on short forms in contrast to long forms that was done in previous work. And we want also to see whether or not there is an effect of the sequence of UI components on both user experience and usability. Now, in the context of our study, we use an app called Meine Umwelt, developed by Corporation Umweltportale. So Meine Umwelt is an app that, as of January last year, had more than 10,000 downloads on the Google Play Store. It can be labeled as a multi-incident reporting app. It can report, for example, about the allergy triggering plant ambrosia, or it can use it to report about the Lucanus servus. This is a type of beetle which is currently in decline and which is even labeled as a near threatened species by the International Organization for Conservation of Nature. You can use MineMover to report about noise, and you can use it to report about waste, and many more. Now, an important detail about this app is that since it is developed for federal agencies in Germany, there is no means to learn about users by integrating interaction logs. The only way of learning about user and improve the design of the app is to do some user studies offline. And this is what we try to do. And the first thing we did is to take the, the Meine Umwelt baseline, and we have re-implemented through prototypes to help gather data about our research question. The first prototype used a scrollable form as navigation strategy. The second one used tabs, as you can see here. And both new prototypes has a different sequence in the ordering of the UI components. So in the baseline condition, you select the type of things that you want to report, you enter the detail, and then you give the location of the incident at last. In the new prototypes, you start with the reporting about the location of the incident, then you select the type of things you want to report, and then you enter the detail. To test the prototype, we recruited 18 participants, 10 male, 8 female. 4 were from the landscape ecologists and biologists, which was in quote domain experts, if you wish. And all the tasks were incident reporting tasks. We had 9 tasks per participant for a total of 162 trials. And the tasks had different properties, complexity of the place being reported about, complexity of the time, and complexity of the task itself. Then we measured usability using the system usability scale, and user experience using the short version of the user experience questionnaire. To avoid learning effects, all the tasks were counterbalanced using a Latin square approach. This is this is example of reporting tasks. It's translated because the original tasks were all in German. And it's just one group of tasks. There were three groups in the experiment. So I'll just read this one and give you a bit more details. So this one says you saw a Roman snail yesterday at 12:30 in the Vorbergshügel, which is a place. You have taken a photo of the snail and now want to report that you have seen a Roman snail. Now, this Roman snail is the type of thing you are reporting about, and there were many. So depending on whether you are reporting about the Roman snail or the ambrosia plant, it demands more in terms of detail that you have to enter, which means that you have to, you may or may not interact with more or less forms. Then the time had a similar idea, depending on whether you're talking about yesterday, but now or a date back in the past, you may interact a lot more with the calendar that is being used for time reporting. And then the place name again had a similar thing. It depending on the place name that a user had to enter, they may or may not interact a bit longer with the map. And as I said, all tasks were counterbalanced. So the results, since we have re-implemented the original Meine Umwelt prototype, the first question is whether or not the prototype are functionally similar. And what you can see here on the right hand side is that prototype 1 was a bit faster than Meine Umwelt here, and prototype 1 was also a bit faster than prototype 2, but since the confidence interval of the means difference crosses 0, which is what we are seeing here on the diagram, basically the differences were not significant, so that we can consider that the three apps were functionally similar. And when it comes to the user experience, there were no difference between prototype 1 and 2. As you can see here on the left hand side, prototype 1 and 2, there were no difference, but there were differences between prototype 1 and Meine Umwelt, especially when it came to the total user experience. That's what you are seeing here. And since user experience has two dimensions, the pragmatic dimension and the hedonic dimension, we looked into this more closely, and we found that there was difference actually when it came to the pragmatic dimension, but no difference when it came to the hedonic dimension. Now this finding I think is confirmed by the system usability scale ratings, because system usability scale are also ways of measuring pragmatic dimensions of perceived experience about pragmatic dimension. And indeed then there is difference between P1 and Meine Umwelt, which means that sequence impacts pragmatic US, but navigation has no effect at the end. And there are plausible explanations to this. It may just be, if we use cognitive theory, that the new sequence implemented is found more natural and more intuitive by users. And that is kind of the most plausible explanation. There may be another explanation if we take the lenses of memory-based theory. In essence, what the theory says is that people's memory of an experience is influenced either by the most intense moment, we talk about peak effect, the first moment we talk about primacy effect, and the final effect moment we talk about recency effect. Now in our case, before we come to that, we had the Cockburn and Al paper, which originally basically reported that recency effects are much stronger or have a more significant impact on user ratings. Now in our case, we had maps which were placed at the beginning, suggesting primacy effects, and in another case they were placed at the end, suggesting recency effects, because previous work has basically suggested that maps are rated as more pleasing for user experience by user. So since we have the map here in one case at the beginning and in another case at the end, basically the only plausible explanation, if we want to use this theory, would be that primacy effect may be stronger than recency effect in some cases, but that remains to be investigated in future work. In any case, what we can already learn from this study is that we can refine a little bit the theoretical model of user incident report that has been proposed in previous work. So the authors, what they suggested is that the task of incident report has 4 subtasks, which is describing, locating, informing about the incident, and providing identification. And they were suggesting here that you don't have the order of these tasks doesn't matter. Now what we learn here is that Yes, the order doesn't matter when it comes to task completion time, but as far as pragmatic user experience is concerned, the order of the task does matter for users. Now, there are a few limitations despite our best efforts to re-implement the original prototype. There were a few things that we couldn't avoid. For example, we had to choose different base maps. Here you had OpenStreetMap, there you had Google Maps, and here we use the React Native um, uh, technology, whereas the original app was using Apache Cordova. There's lots to be done to extend the work. We can further investigate the impact of things such as color palette, spacing between element, size of element, visual hierarchy, and cross-validity of the findings when it comes to user experience on mobile devices. So to close, we have investigated the impact of sequence of menu items and navigation strategy on usability and user experience. And what we found was a sequence of UI element does affect user experience when it comes to the pragmatic user experience, but there is no difference between tabs and scrolling for short form on mobile devices. Thanks for listening, and now I'm curious to hear about your feedback.